Hey, everybody, welcome back to another beautiful conversation. I can already tell when people come into the green room, I don't know this person. I know her maybe all of about a minute and a half right now because we had a short conversation in the green room, but already I can tell that I love her. Her acronym is Dream Mama, as you can see on her underneath her picture. When I said, "How do you want to be referred to?" she said, Dream Mama. I asked her for her real name, which I'm going to give you. It's Vera Lee Heraty. And I may not have said that correctly. I may have said it correctly. Let's hope I did. But I met her all of about 14 seconds ago. So
Okay.
the beauty of this is really what's happened through the course of our sponsor, the Mosaic, which is the publisher of the Mosaic. And they are sponsoring these shows. And I just coughed there because Vera told me she has congestion and she might cough. So I want her to feel completely okay with coughing on the show.
Okay, we're marrying each other.
We're mirroring each other. So the sponsor of the show is the Mosaic, and the Mosaic is a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. So he sets out as a boy in search of that place called heaven. But the people he meets along the way are not the clergymen and the medicine men and women and the shamans and the Aborigines elders. They are the common ordinary people. He meets a trash man and a road worker. He meets a homeless man and a blind woman. He meets a waitress and a gardener and a juice man and a traveler. And he sits and he wonders, what am I meeting these people for? Like, why these people? And then he thinks, well, if only I'm here with them. I don't know why I'm here with them. Why don't I just have a conversation with them? And why don't I just sit and listen to them tell me their story? And in 100% of the cases, when he listens to the stories that these people tell him, he realizes he doesn't know them the way he thought he knew them. The first impression that he had of them is not at all who they are. And when that happens over and over and over and over and over and over again, what he realizes is maybe I don't see anything the way it is. Maybe I see everything just the way I am. And I wonder what would happen if I could slide myself out of the picture and just see what's there, free of my interpretation, free of my thought. And at that moment, he looks to his right and he sees a monk unzipping the sky and inviting him to walk in through a parallel reality to meet the wise one, which he goes. And that's where the book develops. But the whole story is exactly what I'm doing here now. It told me when I finished the book, go out and have conversations, go to universities, go to hospitals, go to prisons, go to places where people hate, go to places where people love, and just sit and listen to people's stories. Because just like Mo, the main character in the story, what would happen if you just created a space where people felt loved and accepted, listened to and heard, acknowledged and validated? What would that give them? What would that create for them? You don't have to teach them. You don't have to change them. You don't have to correct them. You don't have to do anything. You just have to love and accept them. And when I realized I could do that, that's what I was about to set to do. And then Mr. COVID came to town. So I haven't been able to go out because COVID has kept me in. So I decided I'm going to do it virtually. And I put out a post to have 50 conversations with 50 strangers. And I was lucky enough to have Velva Lee Heraty respond to that. So Velva, welcome to the 50 Conversations. What a joy to have you here. Thank you for taking the courage to talk to an imperfect stranger like myself. How are you today?
I am wonderful.
I love
I
it.
had a transformation just listening to you tell your story.
Wow, tell me about that. What happened?
Well, I lost a daughter,
I'm sorry.
and so I understand the quest, the quest for, healing and the experience of loss. Um, and it's been a long time, but it doesn't really go away.
Yeah,
It just it appears like today, just now it appeared when I wasn't even expecting it.
yeah,
So that connection with that little boy who wants to know more and he wants to understand more. And I believe, frankly, we're all on a quest.
yeah. So
Some are unconscious ones and some are unconscious ones.
yeah.
And those that aren't are missing in action for drugs, whatever, some altered state they put themselves in.
Yeah.
But anybody walking this earth today, if they're conscious and aware, you know, they're on a quest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't end.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. So, as you were speaking about your daughter, I thought it was current because I could feel how current it still is in you. I could feel that sorrow still that remains there.
It's there.
Yeah, yeah. And I lost the Mosaic is my story. I lost my mom and dad, my dad 52 years ago and 50 years ago. And it's still there for me as well.
Yeah.
So that book is a homage to me, to my dad, because he was my hero. And so it's a beautiful story, and I hope you will read it as well as people listening. I hope they'll read it as well, because what it does is it helps to change the way we perceive the life that we live by just moving ourselves to the side and seeing something else is possible.
Well, I'm going to...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to tell you a story on how I handled my feelings about this.
Please.
She was died at 32. She was at 27. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Wow.
And she died at 32. And it was probably the worst disease, in my opinion, because I'm a cancer survivor. I know lots of people who've been through lots of things, but every disease that I'm aware of, other than, well, now COVID, of course, is a whole new ballgame. And that's not yet a disease, but it's unpredictable. MS, you wake up one day and suddenly you can't hear.
Wow.
You wake up one day and you feel great. An hour later, you can't walk. Wow. You know, it's so precocious. And she had a rapid cycling advanced progressive, the worst kind. Well, I'm going to flash forward. After she passed, I started walking. I'm from Chicago originally. I lived on the lakefront there in a community called Lincoln Park, and I would walk the lakefront. And one day I was walking the lakefront, and there's this bridge over a main highway, you know, the Outer Drive Express it's called. And I was walking up that bridge and over to cross, and there was a man in a wheelchair. And he was an elderly Black man. He was trying to get over that bridge.
Wow.
And I said, let me help you. And he said, no. And I said, let me help you. And I just took the handles of the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we're both working now.
Yeah.
And we finally get to the arch, and it becomes easy. And I say to him, ta-da. Well, I went home that day and I started a charity called Ta-Da International.
I love that. I love that.
And it's dedicated to people to celebrate their little victories.
Love that.
Well, I was way out of my time, and it never fully matured because I couldn't do it unless I did it virtually. Mm-hmm. And so way back then, we're going back to the year 2000. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of trouble getting it to materialize in my vision, because I had a ta-da lady. And would you like to see her?
Sure.
You're going to love this one. I think she's, let me see if I can find her now. Yeah, hang on a minute.
Okay.
It's very heavy.
Okay.
This is the ta-da lady.
Look at that. How cute. I love that.
Well,
did you make that, or did someone make it for you, or did you just find
I
it somewhere?
bought it from an immigrant, a Polish immigrant, a steel worker, metal worker who was helping the Catholic Church fix their spires.
Wow. Wow.
And he opened, in the basement of a church, he opened a little, gallery for himself.
Wow.
And somebody called me and said, Velva, you've got to see this guy. I'm an art lover.
Uh-huh.
So I said, sure, well, let's go.
Wow.
And I saw this. This was after Moore passed.
Wow.
And I said, oh my God, I have to have her.
I love that.
And I immediately negotiated and purchased her.
Wow.
But the thing I really wanted, that was the bigger negotiations, I wanted the intellectual property rights. Because I already knew she was going to be the symbol.
Yep.
So let me explain. She is large-breasted
Yep.
because she nurtures. She is celebratory and her arms are spread wide open.
Yep.
You can sit on her.
Yeah.
So she's supportive.
Yep.
And her butt kind of looks like a heart.
Yeah.
And she's very solid. So if you put her down, she's stable.
Yeah. Love
So
that.
she's held all the characteristics of a mom.
And she also has a little head, so she's not too caught up in herself.
Yeah, she's
I like that.
she's not ego driven at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. So what's happening to Tada, to the Tada charity now?
I have to put her down. She's really heavy.
Yeah, please. Please.
Yeah. She's bronze. Right now, it's in Chicago. After Moore passed, I had a long grief period.
Yep.
I have a private practice. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm a Jungian.
Okay.
Familiar with Carl
of
Jung?
course,
Yeah,
of course.
sure you are. And I moved. I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to break the grief cycle, and I didn't bring Tada with me.
Wow.
And that turned out to be a good thing.
Where
But
did
one
you
of my-
move to?
I'm living right now, St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay.
And all of Florida is crazy.
Yeah.
And all of Florida is on the hustle.
Huh.
So when I moved down here and I thought of bringing my charity down, I thought, I'm not going to bring it to a place that lacks authenticity, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody reinvents themselves. Everybody is somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's been actually quite a problem for me living here I've been here a while.
Why did you
And
move?
Well, I'm planning on that. I put my house on the market the day before the COVID strike.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I had to isolate because I have a high risk.
Yep.
Pulled it off the market. Now I'm just waiting.
Wow.
I'm just waiting. But I have plans to breathe life back into Tada International.
Beautiful.
And it does have a website.
Fabulous. And we'll list that website in the show notes. For all of you Floridians who take mild offense to what Velva just said, that's her vision of what California. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Philadelphia, and a lot of people, when they come out to California, feel the same way. They feel a little bit like people are flighty here, and they're not as grounded as they are on the East. And I can see where somebody from Chicago might think that people in Florida might be the same way, but don't take offense. It's actually beautiful that you're here, and it's actually beautiful that you enter into a dialogue with Velva and see, because what could be more beautiful than if strangers listening to strangers talk start to create their own dialogues as well. And so,
well, thank you, but I can handle any responses.
I am sure you can. You're a Jungian, for God's sake. I'm sure you can handle all of it. Let me ask you. Let me change it a little bit. With all that you've gone through, we ask how are you, and people say fine, and they say great, and we move on to the next question, and we don't really think about it. But how are you really? How are you doing right now?
I'm like everybody else. I'm struggling. We're struggling. I've been isolated since March 16th.
Wow.
So and there's no end in sight. And as you probably know, I live in a state that's got the worst record of all the states. I mean, we're, I think, fourth in the world in terms of infection rate and it's still out of control here.
Yeah.
So there's no end in sight in any kind of normal return. Everybody's still terrified. It's been very challenging. And
So when I ask you how you are, I understand that where you live, what's going on, but I really want to know how you are. Not that everybody's terrified. Are you terrified?
no, I feel very challenged.
Challenged. Okay.
Yeah, I don't get scared. Scared it isn't a word that even comes into, but I
Right.
say, oh man, this is a real challenge. This is going to be a bitch. And what am I going to do, and how am I going to handle it, and how am I going to balance, how am I going to,
And what is the it for you that is the challenge, if you don't mind me asking?
I think I'm spiritually challenged.
Spiritually.
I think that
Tell me about it.
watching, well, I know we don't want to go dark, so I don't want to go dark
No,
with
you
you,
can go
but
dark. You can go anything you want. This is your place to say whatever you want to say. This is you want to go dark, we go dark. Doesn't matter.
well, back at 9/11,
Yeah.
I was called to be on the National Nightmare Hotline.
National Nightmare Hotline.
Yes, out of New
Wow.
York.
Wow.
And for a year, I responded to nightmares from New Yorkers.
Wow.
But I realized after the second, third phone call that there wasn't just New Yorkers.
Yeah.
People all over the world, and at least in my country, in America, well, the people that knew that there was a hotline, and the
Yeah,
people that
I don't think I even knew there was a nightmare hotline. I
there
mean,
was a nightmare hotline,
wow.
and they would tell me their nightmares, and their nightmares all had, most of them had rescue fantasies. If I was the pilot, I would have done this,
Right.
you know. And I can't wait to kill the blank, 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 and all of these nightmares about complete loss of control. But I realized there was more to it than that, and I was experiencing that. It was some sort of reality hit
Hmm.
that we're not sacred, we're not protected, we're not on top of the world, untouchable.
Yeah.
That and that became an underlying belief of mine that
So
let's
by listening to people's nightmares, you actually realized they were speaking things that you were actually feeling as well. Is that what you're saying?
well, I drew conclusions. I realized that all the theme was that suddenly nobody felt safe. See, we've had the luxury of feeling safe.
Yeah.
All right,
But
we've had the
nobody's. Let me just go. Let me dive deep, and I don't mean to interrupt you because I really want to hear what you're
that's
saying.
okay.
When people say nobody felt safe, those are two biggest statements for me because I felt like I didn't feel unsafe even though 9/11 happened because I didn't feel that. I felt challenged. I even now in these times with all the race protests and Me Too movement and COVID. I still feel pretty safe within myself, but my concepts of life have been challenged, and so some of my concepts don't feel safe. But that's a different
Okay.
thing than me feeling safe. So I just want to sort of understand better what you're saying. By
Well, I'm saying I didn't identify them with them, but I picked up an underlying. Over time, I realized that there's an underlying angst that's appearing in lots of different ways. I'm
yes,
very analytical.
yes, I see
When
that.
when something, I never felt afraid. I went, I laughed. I mean, I went on top of the Sears Tower for lunch 2 weeks later, and there was only three of us in the room.
Wow,
I didn't think that there were
other
airplanes
planes
gonna,
coming
yeah,
at
yeah,
you, right?
yeah, no, but there was a definite seismic shift in the American psyche that I picked up.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how the best way I can put it. And it shook me too, but it shook me, and um, it was my first maybe conscious awareness of that there's an out of control ego an ego drive that is because of its false belief that it's more protected, that the ego has been um, injured, a archetypal kind of injury to, let's say, if you were, young, and the gods and the goddesses and everything, as if you went up to the gods and goddesses and you did something outrageous, and the gods just weren't, they reacted violently because they had to, over punish. I don't know if I'm explaining this well. I haven't really had to explain it.
Yeah, yeah. Your explanation is bringing lots of questions, and I'm hesitating because I don't want to question what it is you believe. I just want to understand what it is you believe. Because one of the places for me, for instance, and this is not like in contrast to you, it's just to share a conversation with you, is that we're having this conversation around the current times. We're back in 9/11 now, which was 19 years ago or something like that. But we're having the conversation around this. So I'm assuming that you feel the same way about the current upheavals that are going on with COVID, with race protests, with Me Too movements. Is that what you're sort of bringing to the table here, that 9/11 opened up something for you that still hasn't closed?
Well, I wouldn't put it that way,
Tell
but
me how you would put it. That's what
but I'm trying to put it in terms. The collective unconscious.
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to say that there was a shock to the American collective unconscious,
Okay.
and it hasn't been ameliorated.
Okay.
Nothing has happened that has done. Hasn't been any healing since.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about from that point forward.
Yeah.
There was a false confidence, a false sense of security that manifested in lots of little ways that created, I think, excessive greed.
Yeah.
That there was a wound that's not healed yet.
So what I want to try and do with you, if you allow me, and you don't have to allow me because this is your time, okay? I want to get you. I want to get you out of your jungian head and
Okay.
into your Velva head, because it doesn't really matter. We're not in your living room on a couch now. What we are is we're sitting two people to two people, one
Okay.
person to person, and we're talking about how you feel right now and how I feel right now. And
Right now, I'm
I don't want to, if I can, like, you can do anything you want. So you can just tell me back off, and I do want to hide behind my belief systems. I would like to ask you to come out from behind your belief systems and talk to me as a human being, like you and me, not a Jungian, but just
okay.
you and me, of how are you feeling? Like, I'm asking you, how are you? I'm
I
not
am.
asking about the collective consciousness. I'm not asking
Can
about
I
the,
answer you?
absolutely, please. I would love you to.
I am profoundly sad.
Profoundly sad. Wow.
Profoundly sad.
Wow.
And I don't want to say despair, but it wouldn't take a lot to push it into despair.
Yeah.
And I'm profoundly sad at what we've become.
Yeah.
But it's not just now. It started, I think 9/11 was the trigger.
Wow.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Listen, this is just my theorizing,
Totally.
but it's made me profoundly sad that there is no healing. There's nothing, and what's happened now is just all of this has just come to the surface.
Yeah.
It's always been there,
Yeah.
and
Can I ask? I want to invite the listeners into our conversation right now, if they haven't been, and I want you to see this beautiful woman who has, I've known her all of about 5 minutes. Um, and within the course of that very short period of time, she's had the courage to sit here in a room with me
Mhm.
and to talk about her profound sadness. And so, what I would like to invite the listeners to do is, as you're hearing this, whether you're hearing it now or you're hearing it later, we're not live, so they're not hearing it now live, but whenever you hear this, I would like you to just pause for a moment and just connect your energy to Velva's and just see if there's a way, not that you can teach her, change her, fix her, help her, but just connect your ambition, your hope, your dreams, your dream mama, as she says. If you can bring the dreams that you experience to this profound sadness, and not to heal her, because she's not sad for her own sake. Maybe she is. She's sad at looking at a world that was once, that we believed, and I'm throwing this over the net to make sure I have it right. You tell me if I'm wrong. But what I'm hearing is she's profoundly sad that a world that we used to believe in, that we used to think existed, doesn't seem to exist anymore.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
And so what I would love for the listeners to do is, if you feel it, which is what I'm trying to do with you right now, it isn't gone. I don't believe. I just believe it's been covered up. And I would like to just blow a wind that allows all of that which covers up this beautiful world that we still live in, because that's the world that I live in, that it isn't gone for me. That it's, no matter how much it gets covered, we bring back the hope and the faith
That's
and
true.
the belief that this world, in its own time, in its own way, without us having to do anything, will restore. And so I'm going to ask you as listeners now to just take a pause. You just pause the recording and just send a breath of hope to everybody like Velva, to everybody who feels like Velva does. She's not the only one who feels this.
No,
What
I'm
she's
not.
what she's tapping into is a collective consciousness, and to just breathe that hope back in, because we are neither the world that we think we are nor the one that others think we are. We are somewhere in between, and this world has the power to live its power, regardless of what we think. And when I talked about Mo sliding himself left and just seeing what's actually there rather than the world he sees, I would like to invite each of us right now to slide left. And what's the world look like without our vision of it, without our without our pain, without the pain that it's experienced, without the things that we bring to it? What does the world actually look like? In my book, The Mosaic, just a quick story. In my book, The Mosaic, Mo finds a shop that nobody else can see, and the shop owner knows that by him walking into her shop, he sees what other people don't see. But her shop is a mirror store. And she watches him walk around and look at the mirrors, and he doesn't know what he's actually seen, because everything is a mirror reflected in a mirror reflected in a mirror, because he sees. And finally he finds a mirror that he loves, and he stands in front of it. And the woman who runs the mirror shop finally appears to him. She's not been present all that time. She's just allowed him to walk. And she says to him, "What do you see when you look in the mirror?" And he tells her all the stories of his life, and he tells her what he sees in the mirror. And she says, "No, that's not what I'm asking you for. I'm asking you, what does the mirror see when it sees you, not what do you see in the mirror. You're putting all your stories into the mirror, but the mirror doesn't see your stories. It doesn't know your stories. I want you to tell me what the mirror sees when it looks at you." In that same way, I would like to invite everybody listening to say, what does the world see when it looks at us? It doesn't want all our stories. We can have them. Those can be ours to take with us wherever we want. But there's also a moment of freedom when we can see the world relaxed of our stories. Your thoughts.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about that.
Please. I thought you might.
Yeah. Um, I think about the trip to Mars. I think about how as our world gets destroyed, people are planning to leave it.
Hmm.
There's a fantasy that somehow they're all going to get on a spaceship and build a better world on Mars or the moon or wherever the hell they decide the ship can take them.
Yeah.
Because when you're faced with so many challenges, one of the great escapes is to escape. Well, I'll just move. I'll just go somewhere else. I don't like it here. I'm going to go somewhere else. But the abandonment, and that's part of this sadness, there's an abandonment that's going on. And it's very selective.
Yeah.
Right? And
so have you felt abandoned?
have I felt abandoned? At this stage of my life, the only person that can abandon me is me. Okay? I've just been through too much, honestly, that,
And have you felt that you have abandoned yourself?
not yet.
Not yet.
Not
Okay.
yet.
But it's when you say not yet, what does that mean? That it could happen?
Well, we all have a point where you just say, hey, this isn't working for me anymore.
Yeah.
I remember sitting on my grandmother's bed. I was her favorite. And I adored her.
Mm-hmm.
And she went to bed and decided to die. This is a true story. I would sit on her bed and I'd say, why?
Yeah.
I didn't question it. I didn't challenge her, say, oh, don't die, Grandma, get up and make me some bread,
Yeah.
But I said, why? And she said, there's nothing for me anymore.
Wow.
And she was very practical. She had given all her property away. She had taken care of business.
Yeah.
And she just decided it was her time. And, I think there was a lot of courage in that. I think there was a lot of reality in that.
So in the mosaic of putting thoughts together, are you getting close to that place where there's nothing left for you here?
No.
Okay.
No. But I can't see down the road, and there's a lot of roads.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
There's a lot of roads.
I love that.
And a lot depends on things that are beyond my control.
I understand.
Health issues is one, income is another, there's exacerbating factors, as we call them.
Yeah.
But I've always valued choice. Choice has been freedom to me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Velvet, what makes you happy? I know what makes you sad. We spend a lot of time on what makes you sad, but what makes you happy?
I love being out in nature.
Wow.
And I'm very happy. I love watching children laugh.
Wow.
I enjoy other people enjoying, when people are happy and there's celebration, I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been in all the darkness I'm shared with you. There's been a tremendous amount of light.
Yes.
I've had, most people would say, a blessed life.
Yeah.
I've an envious life, I probably, when I think of the last time I was really feeling that kind of joy, I was on the deck of a ship going scuba diving.
Wow.
So I've been very fortunate, very fortunate.
Yeah.
And, that's where this balance comes in. you can always say, okay, look at this is profoundly sad, but this was of great joy.
Yeah.
So,
What's important to you now? You've lived a rich, full life. You've seen
I
the
have.
top of the mountain. You've seen the bottom of the mountain. What's important to you now?
Um, well, this is grandiose because it's nothing I can do anything. I can do my small part,
Good.
but it's important that we start a healing process
Yeah.
on a global level.
Yeah.
A surrender, that ego that got wounded back at 9/11, that we could do no wrong, and our you know what didn't smell, you know, that becomes a more integrated into a more caring whole. It's the but see, I could go on and on about why I think all of this. I've traced all these
Yeah.
historical moments.
Yeah.
So, I
It's
mean,
less important to me why you think it is more important to me what you feel now. And so when you say it's grandiose and there's not much I can do about it, if you could do one thing about it, what would you do?
just one thing.
Yeah, how would you start? What would be the first thing you would do? Let's talk about because when it's grandiose like that, it's really hard to think that you can do anything. But when you break it down into bite-sized pieces, you can take a bite and you can chew it and you can take another bite. And what would be the first bite you would take into this piece that you want to create?
Well, I would
What?
take a long needle,
Okay,
and for every ego inflation I saw,
okay,
I would pop it like a balloon.
okay. So
So
how would you do that without balloons and needles? Because
I'm doing it already. I've
you're
been doing it for about a couple of years now.
tell me how that it looks for
Well,
you.
I've become a colossal pain in the ass. Okay.
Okay,
I don't take any prisoners anymore.
okay,
I speak very directly, and I call everyone on their BS. And I've made a difference in a lot of ways because I've started movements, and changed things.
yep,
Because I'm just at this point speaking my truth and living my truth,
beautiful.
and that's not okay with a lot of people.
Yeah, it doesn't matter though. It doesn't. I
Yeah,
mean, what?
I couldn't care less.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I actually, um, it's funny because I feel you, and I want to just lob this over the net. You can tell me I'm wrong, and I'd be happy for you to tell me I'm wrong. I feel exactly the opposite. I feel like you care so much that you make a statement of I couldn't care less to protect yourself from feeling hurt because of how much you do care. Because
I've always cared.
yeah, I actually feel like your heart is so big that you care so much, and that's why you're driven to do the things that you're doing. Um, and yet it just doesn't want to say that it cares because it would rather say I could care less because that way you're protected a little bit. But in this room, you don't need to protect yourself. So
Well, that's true, but just bear in mind, I've got a core, and it's a very solid core
I believe
of,
that.
of beliefs and values.
Yeah, I feel that. I don't believe
Okay,
that. I know that. I can feel it in
okay,
you.
okay.
I can feel it in
So,
who you are.
this core is very substantial.
I believe
So
that.
when I say I couldn't care less, it doesn't mean I don't care.
Yeah,
It means this core isn't going to be bent or broken or anything else.
love that.
It's going to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Good for you.
And
Let me
so
let me change it up if I can. I suck at lightning rounds, but let's try and do a little bit of a lightning round. Let's change the energy a little bit.
okay,
Are you a dog person or a cat person?
both.
Both. Coffee or tea?
Coffee,
Conservative or liberal?
liberal.
Um, are you shy or are you outgoing?
I am both.
Talk.
I'm an outgoing introvert.
Okay, I love that. Um, have you always felt like you fit into the world, or have you always felt like you're a little different?
I'm in line, but I'm out of step.
Wow, tell me about that. I love that answer.
Well, I'm in line, but I'm out of step. I'm always the one person, not always, but you know what I mean. I,
Yeah.
I just look at it. I, James Hillman said something that I could really relate to. He said, I just want to move the furniture in your head around.
I love that.
You can always put it back.
I love that. I
And
love that.
that's kind of, when I read that, I thought that's exactly how I feel.
So if you were to move the furniture in your head around, what would be the first piece that you would move?
My anger,
Your anger.
yeah, because
You
you can't feel this um, sad about the world and not have anger about it.
yeah.
Every,
So,
I mean,
says I want to just say for one, I don't necessarily, I'm not going to buy that, but I'm going to buy that for you because I feel sad about the world, but I'm not angry with it. So I'm going to share with you, not to say that you're wrong, but I'm just going to share with you. Sometimes you make statements of you can't or everybody or
okay,
never,
okay,
and I want to exclude myself from those statements because they don't fit my. I'm in line with you, but out of step, perhaps. If that
okay,
may, okay,
okay, all right,
okay, all
yeah.
right. Does that make sense? Um, do you feel you are a giver, or do you feel that you are more waiting for things to happen in the world?
Oh, I'm definitely a giver.
Yeah. And when you give and it isn't received, what happens
But honestly, what happens?
for
Maybe
you?
that's when I get angry.
Yeah. No, well, that's interesting, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, I've spent a lot of years in a yoga tradition, which talks about the unconditionalness of karma yoga, of just giving for the sheer joy of giving and whether people receive it like a fruit tree. A fruit tree doesn't, it gives fruit because it's all it knows how to do. It doesn't give fruit thinking that someone's going to, it just fell on the ground and it's splattered, or someone's going to throw it at somebody, or someone's not going to enjoy it, right? Or all it knows how to do is give.
that's a bad analogy for me.
Why? Tell me.
A tree is not a person.
Okay, how come?
Well, it's not.
Okay,
It's a living thing,
so
a living thing.
do you believe that your giving should be conditional upon being received?
No, no, I don't mean that. I mean that, um, well, I sat, oh, how do I?
I love this conversation, by the way. I love that I'm making you think, and I love that you're making me think. I like it. Thank you.
Well, I had a private practice for 30 years.
Yes, I see that.
It was very full, you
Yeah,
know.
I see
A
that.
lot of people passed through my office.
Yep.
And I developed a lot of disciplines and techniques and everything like
Yep.
that. And I think surrender was a very important part of my work
Yeah.
because when you do interventions, you can't, there's no guarantee on the outcome.
Totally.
You
Totally.
know, so,
So,
um,
are you old enough to remember overhead projectors?
oh, absolutely.
Okay. So I want you to take the statement you just made of when you do this work and you do these things, you can't have there's no predicted outcome. You can't count on an outcome to happen. You just have to be there for people. And then I want you to, that's one sheet of plastic that I want you to put on. Then I
Okay.
want to put on another sheet of plastic that you said a moment earlier, which is maybe when I give and it's not received, that's why I get angry. Tell me what image the overhead projector now portrays on the screen in front of you with both those things on it.
Well, it sounds like a conflict, doesn't it?
Well, it might be, but I believe
Yeah.
it's what you made both those statements with a lot of clarity and certainty. And so what I want to know is how do you, I don't think they're conflicting statements per se for you. It just felt, I want to know how you believe those, because both of them you said with some
Well,
certainty.
one is professional, one is personal.
Uh,
There's a lot of investment. I made a huge investment in professional, in the jungian model, okay?
yeah, yeah,
And it's been my professional I wrote a book, by the way. I've got a book. But it's been my professional guide. You can't be the same way professionally as personally
Why not?
because one, you're a role. You've got a professional role. Your people come to you with expectations. They do.
But why
They do.
wouldn't you? What? Like people have said that to me my whole life. So I love this because I want you to just know, not because I'm in conflict with you, just because I want you to see somebody else who you're talking to right in front of you, who has spent his whole life putting those pieces of that mosaic together. That my professional person is no different than my personal person because
Okay.
I want to be an integrated human being that has all of those pieces operating in all of those places. So I'm the same way I am with my friends as I am with people that other people would call my clients. I don't even call them my clients because I don't believe there's clients. I believe we're only friends. I believe in a horizontal reality where we just sit next to each other and we have an impact on each other. And
Okay.
that doesn't change because I'm now charging for it or I'm not charging for it.
Well, it's not about money. It's about boundaries.
It's about boundary. Okay, so tell me how you see it. Tell me about why you professionally have to be one way, which sheet of the overhead projector are you professionally?
Let me give one word to you. You could. I don't have to be anything. I
Okay,
choose to be. Okay.
which sheet do you choose to be professionally?
I choose to keep my boundaries. I'm a believer in boundaries.
Okay,
Okay. And that doesn't mean you don't get your heart broken by a client. It doesn't mean that you can't, suffer at the hands of a client. You don't give up your humanity.
yeah,
You just you put limits on how you're going to respond
okay,
because it's not about you when you're sitting in the therapeutic container.
right,
Jung called it the temenos, the sacred space. When you're sitting there, it's not never about you.
of course.
Okay, so
So for people who are listening, this is just such an interesting question for you to ponder also at home.
okay,
Is there and I'm talking to the listeners now who can't answer but can answer in the privacy of their own places, okay? Are there different models of you that show up in different situations? Is there a working person? Is there a personal person? Is there a person that is a certain way with their family? Is there and do all of those have different boundaries around them so that you are that you that, and you choose what those are? Or do you choose to integrate all of those in? Neither one is right or wrong. It's just an interesting place to sit and get self-inquiry.
okay. I can think I understand what you're asking. You're making it look like a whole bunch of squares with fences around it.
How do
You
you
know,
make it? How do you make it look?
I see it as water, rivers flowing. I think it's more fluid than that.
Explain. I'd
It's
love
not
that.
that I don't get angry with a client. Of course I do. Of course I do. But it's how you handle and demonstrate that,
Yeah.
and it's how there's where the boundaries are. You know, I have gotten angry with the client, but
Hmm.
I said I'm really angry. I didn't go sideways with it.
Right.
I
Right.
said you're really pissing me off, is what I said. Okay. So it's not that it's not there; it's that it stays in that container,
Gotcha.
and the container is fluid.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, a little bit.
I think we're in an ideological um, views of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, I see that um, I see that the world and the choices we make in the world have siloed us, and they have we can have many silos, which I love that you're pointing out. You can have a personal silo, you can have a professional silo, you might have a dating silo, you might have a COVID silo. There might be all these different silos that you have, which are not, which I'm calling little boxes, and you're calling a river. So you don't see them as silos. But
I don't see them as silos, no.
yeah. So how does a river that flows have boundaries?
Because there's always values and beliefs and ideals that create riverbanks, or maybe islands, or maybe a fork in the road.
Okay.
You know, that sometimes the river is dammed up. You know, because rivers need containers.
So I love what you just said, and I really want to invite people. This is the beauty of conversation, okay? Because when I'm talking to Velva, I hear what she's saying as little boxes, which she so beautifully described as the perception that I was getting from those silos. She sees them as rivers, which don't have boundaries, but have boundaries. They have river banks. They have islands in the midst of them. They have all sorts of obstructions that could come
Waterfalls.
Waterfalls. They have all sorts of things that could happen that change the flow of the river, but it's still a flow of a river. And so, ask yourself, how do you identify those places in you? How do you define the boundaries that you create? Are they rivers or are they boxes? And how does that change, if it does change anything?
Well, they just are, you know.
Yeah.
They are. They're part of. I want to call it. I use the term hardwire with people. It's a value and it's a belief. It's part of that core I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I don't question it. And it's become fluid over time. You can't go through. I'm older than I look. You can't reach my age in life without having that core being tested over and over and over again.
Totally.
But after a while, it's like riding a bike. You just do it.
Yeah.
It just becomes, you don't sit and think about it. It's not an ego decision. You just become. Your feeling state calls to you. It's an internal dialogue, if you will.
Yeah.
And you just become. Does that make sense?
Yeah. They're interesting new concepts, which is what I want to think about, because I like that you're rearranging some of the furniture in my head. And I like that you're doing that. So I'm enjoying, and that's one of the beauties of meeting strangers in a room, that you get your furniture rearranged sometimes, which I enjoy. So thank you for doing that. Do you believe right now it's more important for you to have a platform to speak what you believe, or more important for you to create a platform to listen to what other people believe?
Well, we don't know each other, right?
Yeah.
I had a podcast for 5 years.
Okay.
I do. I lost my voice. I had a lot of trouble with my allergies and I couldn't talk well anymore. So I put it on hiatus. So at the peak of my podcast, it was like 4 years ago now, I had almost 20,000 followers.
Wow.
And the producer, he kind of blew it. He lost his sponsorships and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very unhappy because I felt that there was a lot of value in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, I thought, okay, I'll start a podcast. And I started it and it went well. It went very well.
So you restarted another podcast now?
Well, yeah, but the first one wasn't a podcast. It was a radio show.
Oh, a radio show. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I went to a podcast and I got a sponsor and I started having a lot of problems with my voice. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to take care of my allergies.
Yeah.
And I let it go. I put on hiatus, but I want to go back to it now.
Yeah.
And
so in answer to the question I asked, do you feel it's more important for you to have your voice come back now? Is that what you're saying? Or to listen to other people's voices?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Because my podcast was what I did was listen. I mean, I had guests just like you, you know.
Poor
I
thing.
did.
You have guests like me. Poor pig.
No, my guests were more predictable.
Okay.
That's funny you said that. Um, I would anyway. I'll send you all those links and everything. It
Okay.
was called Let's Talk Life, and it was about the eight life stages and
Hmm.
how people function in each one. So
So keep coming back. You're a beautiful storyteller, but I would love you to answer straight up. Is it more important for you now to reestablish your voice, or more important for you to listen to other people's voices? Just right now. I know both of them are important, but which one is more important for you in this moment? In other words, do you feel heard, or do you feel like you want other people to feel heard?
I want to be heard.
You want to be heard.
I became a COVID tracer. Okay. I'm an MSW, and they reached out and offered us a free course.
Fabulous.
I thought I'm going to take that. You know,
Yeah.
it's free.
Right.
and the illness was the virus was starting to be
Yeah.
a focus. So I took the course, and I found out there are no tracing jobs.
Wow. Wow.
So I said okay. But then the EPA invited me to their Environmental Protection Agency indoor air seminar, because now I'm a tracer and I'm on all these invitation lists, right?
Right.
And that's when it just totally blew my mind. I was so freaked out after that seminar that
Yeah.
I started a Facebook page
Hmm.
on something called COVID aerosols,
Wow.
CV-19 aerosols, which is the real problem.
Yeah.
And that's the problem in a nutshell.
Hmm.
But it hasn't been identified. And then I learned about MERV filters, MERV, MERV rated filters.
Hmm.
Make sure you have one of those in your home, by the way.
Okay.
Anyway, schools can't open without all these precautions
Yeah.
because of the aerosols. And it doesn't matter, you know. And so I've got a lot of teachers now I'm counseling. I'm not charging them because they're desperate,
Yeah.
and they're terrified, and they have every right to be. And they'll call me. I'll say, well, my first advice is just don't go.
Wow.
But if you have to go, here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
So I've got a playbook now on how to get these teachers in the classroom with the
Beautiful.
minimum of risk.
Beautiful.
You know what happened in Florida?
No, I think I'm going to
We,
find out.
you are. We have a shooter law.
Huh.
So the rooms have to be locked and the windows have to be sealed.
Wow.
So there's no fresh air, there's no air
Wow.
circulation. And without air circulation, CV-19 you're like, they're putting these kids in a petri dish.
Wow.
So I'm very agitated and
Yeah.
determined to get that information out there.
I think I finally met someone who is even worse at lightning rounds than I am.
Even worse than what?
At lightning rounds than I am. Lightning rounds are supposed to be these great. So you and I can have, the leisurely lightning round. Let me keep moving forward.
Okay.
Trust. Is it easy for you, or is it hard for you?
Hard.
Hard. Um, you care to explain that at all?
I thought this was a lightning round.
I suck at it. I told you. You don't have
Well,
to. You can just say it's hard for you to do.
it's not hard, it's just long. I
It's
don't
long.
know. Well, I don't know about your time or what's going on.
Yeah,
I
our
mean,
time. Give me a short version.
well, at this point in my life, people have to earn it.
Okay,
It's not given anymore.
gotcha.
It's not an assumption. It's not, I give it the first time. I always give it the first time.
Yeah,
But it's been burned too many times.
Yeah, look what you did to me. You came into a room with an imperfect stranger like myself and trusted it. So you do give it the first time. That's obvious.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you're easy to trust, though.
Thank you. That's kind of you to say.
Seriously, you're a serious, easy to trust person.
Yes, people have told me that. Do you believe you are someone who's in the box or out of the box?
Out of the box.
And do you believe people are more similar than they are different, or more different than they are similar?
I'm a Jungian. They're more similar.
Beautiful. And as we wind down, do you believe that like, it's easy to know when someone speaks to us that we can listen to someone speaking to us, but do you believe that inanimate things speak to us?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe the world is speaking to us right now?
Absolutely.
What do you think the world's saying?
Heal me.
Yeoman. Beautiful.
And that's what COVID is going to do.
Yeah.
The great virus destroyer is going to be the ultimate healer.
Yeah.
I mean, look what it's uncovered already.
Yeah. Someone asked me on a podcast, did I see anything good about COVID? And it was so easy to say the easy things that everybody says, which are good. But the thing that I saw that was really beautiful about it is how contagious an environment we live in. And the contagiousness of that environment has amazing power to be contagious for fear-based things as much as it does to have contagious of love-based things. And if we were able to spread a virus of love, we don't even know how the contagiousness is spreading, but that we could spread a contagious virus of love around this planet, and it would take us without us even seeing it, just like COVID, something we can't see, something we can't feel, something that just comes to people of all ages, all colors, all sizes, and it's a little more discriminatory than is what we would like to say it is, because it does affect certain people more than others, people that are older like you and I, people that are of color, but it affects everybody. And that same virus of love, we can start to plant it now, and we can start to spread it through the contagiousness of our own being and see what happens. To me, that's the beauty of COVID, that something unseen could spread worldwide. And if it can do it with fear, it can certainly do it with love. Your thoughts?
And maybe that's going to be the next step.
Yeah, I hope so.
Because you have to purge. You have to purge.
Yeah.
You know, there has to be a purge. There just has to be. My famous, I said, okay, karma's coming. And so is Darwin.
Yeah.
They're both coming hand in hand. They're the new couple in town. Karma and Darwin.
I love that. You've said a lot, but if you had one thing you wanted to share with the world as you go out, what would be that one thing that you would share?
Be true to your feelings. Be authentic. Be authentic.
Beautiful. Velva, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with us here. I want to thank
wonderful.
you for being as open and vulnerable and
I
honest.
feel heart flutters.
Yeah, good. I do too. I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for sharing interesting perspectives with me that allowed me to move some of the furniture in my head. And for
Anytime,
and thank you, I appreciate that. And for those people who are listening, if Velva has moved any of the furniture in your head, if she's challenged some of your belief systems, if she's made you uncomfortable or made you uneasy, if she's made you completely comfortable, reach out to her, because we are in this conversation together. Even though Velva and I are having the conversation, you're a part of this conversation. And what could be better if strangers, listening to strangers speak, suddenly started to have dialogue with each other? Velva, how would people get in touch with you? I'm going to ask you for all your social media links and your website and all that stuff, and the link to your book and everything. But how's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The fastest way?
Yeah.
Email.
Okay. And
V.
I want you to send me that because it'll be in the show notes because it's going to be hard to spell.
All right, I'll send you the links that I think will make a
Yes.
difference. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to send you a bunch of stuff, but
Totally, perfect.
you know, the target links.
Perfect. And so, I want to thank all of you who listen to these shows for listening. It's such a joy to have you here, and just basic understanding of the way life happens. If you like something, why not share it with people that you like? That's the way things grow. And so if you like it, share it with someone you like. And if you don't like it, don't share it with anybody. You don't have to do anything like it to get rid of it. Don't listen to it again, or don't listen to the shows ever again. But there's so much value in having conversations with people and in listening to people. And I think that so many people are starting to come to me and say, I can't tell you how much those shows mean to me. Thank you so much. And what I want to ask you all to do, I want to challenge you. I want to ask each of you to reach out to somebody, either virtually or in person, that you don't know. And just ask them how they're doing and start a conversation with them. And just listen to them. You don't have to change their point of view. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to help them. You don't have to lead them. You don't have to correct them. You don't have to do anything. You're more than willing to share with them what you believe and listen to what they say. But we don't have to fix and change people. Just open yourself up, open your heart up to just listen and hold the space. Because here's what I find in this room. When people feel loved and accepted, when people feel listened to and heard, when they feel acknowledged for what they said and validated. Velva said it beautifully. I feel heart flutters. But what happens for a lot of people is who we are not falls away because we don't have to be that anymore. We don't have to protect ourselves. We don't have to have some of the boundaries that we put up around ourselves in a room like this where we're loved and accepted for who we are. And when who we are not falls away, who we are is all that remains. And I want to invite you to start to have authentic conversations, like Velma says. Be authentic. Have authentic, real conversations with people by just listening to them. You don't have to teach. You don't have to do anything. Just be open and listen to what they say. In a world of strangers, we act differently than we do in a world of friends. And how long did it take? It took a little over an hour for this woman that I've never met before to go from being a complete stranger to a beautiful friend.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing. And all it takes is just the idea of sitting down and listening to somebody else, sharing with somebody else what you believe, listening to what they believe, and not fighting each other, but just listening. I mean, there are points that we don't agree on, but who cares? There's so many points that we do agree on. Velma, is there one thing you want to say before we close out?
Thank you. Just a simple thank you for being you, for being that objective listener, for being that person that elicits that kind of trust. It makes a difference.
I want to tell you how much your words mean to me, and I thank you for those. And I take them to heart. I thank you for being here. Those of you listening, I thank you for coming. And until the next stranger comes into the room, don't be strangers with each other. Be friends.
Okay.
See you soon. Ciao.
Bye.